Our scripture today is Revelation 21, verses 1 through 6, which is pages 1233 and 1234 in the Pew Bible. Revelation 21, verses 1 through 6. The new heaven and the new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw, you understand the sea was a horrible place. I mean, the sea was full of gremlins and things that eat you, and, it was really bad news. So I said, and the sea was no more, so the bad things were gone. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. Verse 5, and he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. This person who does the bulletin messed it up again. No. Today's sermon is really a new city with an old name. Okay. A new city with an old name, being Jerusalem. Okay. Revelation 21 is a passage with familiar language. No more tears, no more death. That's kind of neat, isn't it? No more tears and no more death. No more pain. Comforting words for the grieving and the tested. But the text also has rich and unexplored imagery. John is trying to give us a glimpse of paradise to come. And it isn't fluffy clouds and angels and harps. Many people seem to think going to heaven will be like going on vacation. A place where the weather is pleasant, the people are nicer, the closing vision in the apocalypse of a new city coming down from heaven to earth and bringing with it the completion of God's purpose, his earthly creation. And all of the visions in this book, this is perhaps the strangest. There are a lot of cities mentioned in Scripture. And quite a few of those cities in the biblical record have a deserved bad reputation. The first city, Enoch, was founded by Cain. And we find out in Genesis 4:17, and that relates that after arriving in the land of Nod, Cain's wife bore him a son, Enoch, in whose name he built the first city. And the second recorded city was at Babel, another not so hot place, still a symbol for man's grasping greed, wanting to get up on top, wanting to climb the ladder, shall we say, be above everyone else, be above the earthly creation that God had. And all of the visions in this book tend to be strange. And we add Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, that's something else, isn't it? And it becomes more difficult to imagine God in a city. What's God doing in Sodom and Gomorrah? And then Babylon, the stand-in for Rome. In the Apocalypse, it's described as a whore, someone who uses and is used by others for material gain. And even Jerusalem, founded by David, rejected both God and Jesus. How then should heaven be a city, new or not? And shouldn't heaven be a garden like Eden? That sounds kind of nice. I like walking around our house. Mary Beth's got flowers growing all over, and it's just it's pretty, that's all. It's a garden-like atmosphere. Laura's got a lot of flowers. I like flowers. They smell good too, most of them. And shouldn't we really have a garden-like atmosphere? Put our lawn chair out, and put our feet up and turn on the ball game or whatever. Wouldn't that be heaven? Not really. Based on a cultural mandate that God gives Adam and Eve in the words of Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion. Just as God brought order out of nothingness, humanity is to bring order out of createdness. Could it be that a natural progression from the garden to the city? In a quick survey of Genesis text, maybe we can theologically connect Eden to the Revelation city this way. I don't know. It's kind of fun trying. Genesis 1 and 2, God creates a world yet to be sin-tainted. A paradise, a peaceful heavenly garden. Adam and Eve are connected intimately with each other, with God and with their life purpose, and they are given a mandate to expand culture, to create and cultivate. And then in Genesis 3, Adam and Eve give independence from God a try. Oh, let's try not paying any attention to what Mom has to say. You ever tried that one? Oh boy. Yeah, I remember also trying what my teacher didn't say. That kind of had, yeah. Mm-hmm. And when I got home, I sure didn't tell anybody about it either. And then Genesis 3, Adam and Eve, they're removed from paradise. And they're banished from the garden. Take your lawn chair and your TV set and get up and go. And then Genesis 11 is misguided city building. People are living out their cultural mandate, but in human triumph and not divine worship. Now, all of a sudden, in Genesis 11, we have just what today is, don't we? It's us, we, I, me, ourselves. Can I, gimme, got, go? It dominates the text. It just overpowers the text. Genesis starts in a perfect garden with connection to God, with connection to each other, and a call to divinely inspired culture creating. 10 chapters later, there's aggressive independence from God and a self-aggrandizing vocation in Babel. We're going to build something. Now a city starts to make real sense in Revelation 21. The city is the redemption of Babel and Eden. There's a dense human interconnectedness once again. The restored presence of the Lord is in its center. Created goods, the glory and honor of the nations, pouring unto us as evidence of goodness of human creation and cultivation. It's a better city, it's a better life than Genesis 3 through Judgment Day could ever imagine. Envisioning heaven as a garden would surely have honored God for his redemption and creative beauty, wouldn't it? Everything restored to the way the Maker intended it. Put it right back the way we started. But envisioning heaven as a city honors us as well. Oh, look how important we are. It is God's way of saying that his human project is still very good. We're going to work with these people. We're going to get them straightened out. Genesis 1:31, God is saying that what we create can be good. And it can, can't it? It really can. Things are moving ahead to what is new and not just back to what was old. And we partner with God in ushering it in that way. And we find dwelling places of God in the Scripture. God's dwelling places were portable. There was the ark. No, not the ark that you floated around in, the ark that they carried the covenant in, you know, the box with handles on it and real fancy, you know, a box. And the Ark of the Covenant. And there was a tabernacle. What was the tabernacle? It started out being a tent. God lives in a box in a tent. Does that make sense? God lives in a box in a tent. And he destroyed the temple twice. That is the physical one that they built. And the religious importance of the temple made it acceptable to abuse by those prostituting themselves after religious power. For God provided many places for expressing desire to be in close relationship with those who were faithful to him. How many of us are faithful to him? And sinful men found them all with a religion devoid of faith. A lot of religions like that. I was going through a bunch of old books last week, and I have several books that fake religions, phony religions. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. People make this stuff up. And they sort of make themselves God. And that doesn't work. And it's not going to work. In the creation of the heavenly city, God provided a final dwelling place with God's people, saying, "It is done," thereby echoing the completion of God's judgment and the completion of God's earthly life. Revelation 16:17. The New Jerusalem is wonderful beyond all comprehension. Can you just imagine the New Jerusalem come? Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine it. I mean, Revelation, John's explanations of what he sees to start with are just fabulous. You know, streets are made of liquid gold, etc., etc. I mean, and on and on. And the only way he can say streets are gold and everything is emeralds and jewels and all this sort of thing is because he's defining it in the most glorious way he can possibly define it. He doesn't know anything that says it could possibly be better, shinier, more wonderful than what God is doing. God is saying, or John is saying, this is wow. This is really wow. It's done. Echoing the completion of God's judgment. Wonderful. How wonderful, how glorious, huh? John both envisions a city with no pains, no tears, full of beauty, no enmity between peoples, but Revelation chapters 21 through 22.5 expand the image of the new heaven and the new earth centered on a new city. It's holy, it says in verse 2. It's as intentional and lavish as a wedding day bride. Now, a wedding day bride in today's picture, you might come in here and you have the gentlemen all dressed up and ladies all dressed up, and we say the vows, and the ladies and gentlemen are now married, and they walk out and they have a reception, and in a couple of hours the whole thing's done. Not in Jerusalem. It took a couple of days. I mean, a couple of days. They really had a wedding when they had a wedding. And we're talking about this marriage with God is really a wedding. It's really something else. It radiates with Shekinah. Now, Shekinah is, if you'll notice on the front of the bulletin, it probably says Shekinah someplace. Oh, yes, it does, in more than one places. Muriel Salim, coordinator and Daughters of Shekinah. It's a ladies group. Reverend Dr. Asher Salim, founder of Shekinah Bible Ministries. We don't really understand what Shekinah means, I think, because we don't use it enough. It's a Hebrew word meaning a dwelling or a settling, and it denotes a settling in the divine presence of God, and it shines in glorious light. It shines. It is the light. Shekinah, the light of God. Gives me goosebumps. Fabulous. And then the 12 gates are named for the 12 tribes, but they're entered by God's new people. And it's built from precious metals and gems and so forth, and filled with cultural imports from all over the world. Always daylight, never night. Can you imagine that? Every night at our house, Mary Beth runs around and turns the lights out. Nothing wrong with that. But all the lights are out. Not in heaven. They're all on. And you know what? You can even sleep when they're all on. And eat. That's the best part. Do you sleep in the dark or do you sleep in the light? You don't have to answer me, but, you know, we all have different sleeping habits, don't we? Some of us like the light, some of us like the dark. When I came back from the hospital, she left the light on so I wouldn't fall over something. When I was in the hospital, I liked a light on so I wouldn't fall over something, because I didn't mind very well when they said stay in bed. And I didn't want to fall over something. But you see, God is making all things new. Everything is new. He made the church new. New Jerusalem is described as a bride adorned for her husband. For some years, people have stated that the church is the bride of Christ, so that's not quite right. We're heading in the right direction, but that's not the right answer. New Jerusalem is the bride of Christ, as you can easily see from verse 2. However, all of the redeemed make up New Jerusalem. The Old Testament saints were promised the New Jerusalem in Hebrews 11:10 through 16. I'm not going to list off the scriptures. The early church was promised the city. Every Christian is promised to be part of the city. The 144,000 Jews that Jehovah's Witnesses think they're the only ones, they're Jews. They're going to be there. The tribulation saints, those that found God after the bad things happened instead of before, they're going to be there. I mean, there's a whole lot of different people in the New Jerusalem. And the New Jerusalem, all combined, is the bride of Christ. Now, this is not married like husband and wife. This is put together like friends, like God and you and I. This is really a togetherness thing. And John's final vision focuses entirely on the end state rather than on the process that brings it into being. His description that the former heaven and the former earth had passed away provides no clue as to whether the created order known to us has been completely destroyed. Has it? Well, 2 Peter 3:7, or was it merely transformed, such as Romans 8:19 through 23? We can go either way with that. That's one of these theological discussions. John's interest instead is what distinguishes the new heaven and the new earth from the present one. The new heaven and the new earth are going to be new. The old heaven and the old earth are old. They're things of the past. Because John has emphasized the creative order over and against the spiritual realm in opening this vision, it's important that we miss not the symbolic importance of the fact that the sea was no more. In other words, it's not bad anymore. It's all good. Everything is all good, people. It's going to be wonderful. Why are we afraid to die then? Or are we afraid? No. No, we're not afraid. Get a little anxious about it. You don't want to leave your family. You don't want to leave your friends. You get anxious about it. Were you afraid the first time you jumped off the garage roof or the shed roof? I mean, oh boy, you know. Yeah, well, that's the way it's going to be when you go and, you know, here I go. You know, I'm going to take the jump. I'm going to take the leap. Are you ready to take the leap? Raymond was telling me that the doctor, the night he went in the hospital and he was so bad off, the doctor's telling him all what's wrong with him. He said, now I'm going to give you all these drugs. He said, do you understand? One of them could kill you. Are you all right with that? And Raymond's answer was, yeah, I'm all right with that. That's got to be our answer, doesn't it? That was my answer. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Let's stop and get a donut on the way to surgery. Yeah. I'm all right with that. I know where I'm going. And there's an old song, I know where I'm going and I know who's going to be there. All my friends, my relatives, my loved ones, oh my goodness. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Within this new created order, God places a new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. So God takes an old city, He makes it new. How, what, where, when, He did it, that's all we know. And He showed it to John. And John wrote it down in perfect misunderstanding. John wrote it all out and says, this is the way I saw it, this is the best I can do. You know, the guy had 6 Rolls Royces and 2 big mansions and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's writing down the best he can write it down. He's building it up as much as he can write it down. And God makes our new relationship with Him, with God. And while we live on this earth, our relationship to God is as variable as our faith, because we're fickle. We're all Gomer and Mary, Judas and John, our relationship to God. Only God's love is consistent, and that's God's love in heaven. As Jesus once tabernacled with us, so God now tabernacles with us finally, completely, and permanently. God will fulfill the promise of Isaiah 66:13 as a mother comforts her child. Think about that. You fall down and you skin your knee or something, a mom's holding you and loving you, and God's holding you and loving you. And so I will comfort you, you will be comforted in Jerusalem. Heaven isn't just a place where we go when we die. It appears that God is setting up eternity on a new earth. Most people don't know that or understand the implications, and it's up to you to tell them about it. Because if they don't know about it, you're the one that does. We don't want them to miss out. Somebody told me they didn't like the last hymn. Who wants to sing a different last hymn? You got one? You got a hymn you'd like to sing? No? Does anybody have a hymn?